Hey everyone, I hope you all are doing good and having a wonderful day. In this video, we are going to talk about one of the most interesting and easy misconfiguration that you can look for when you're doing bug bounty, pen testing or ethical hacking. This method is actually very easy, but despite all of that, if you're able to find this particular misconfiguration in your target, then it can give you a lot of sensitive impacts. For example, it can help you to get some really sensitive information about the target's user. For example, their name, their addresses, their mobile number, etc. Not only that, in some application, depending on the application, obviously, it can give you the access to edit or modify the data as well. All of this without having proper authorization or proper authentication to it. And let me tell you that I'm not talking about IDORs here. It is something really much simpler than IDOR, but it is equivalently very powerful. So if you're interested, then make sure to watch this video till the end. But before diving deep into this video, if you haven't checked out my previous video, then go ahead and check it out. The link of the video is given in the description, as well as you can see it at the right side of the screen. And now, with that being said, let us get started. So as always, before diving deep into this video, let us try to understand what exactly we're going to do in this particular video, right? So we are going to do something which is known as response code manipulation. So this is exactly what we're going to do. But first, let's try to understand the context, okay? So let's say we have a target, or let's say we have an application, let's say Amazon.com, right? And now let's say in Amazon.com, we have multiple endpoints or multiple URLs, right? For example, we have URLs that is like displaying products. We have URL that allow us to do registration, and similarly, we can do login operation as well, right? Now, there are certain URLs that can only be accessed when you are authenticated into the application, right? For example, you can only buy the product once you are, logged in into Amazon. Only then you can access that particular page, which is allowing you to, proceed with whatever the product that you want to buy, right? Like filling all the addresses and all the other details, right? So this is how it is working. Now, if you try to access that endpoint, which is, directly giving you, like taking you to the checkout page without properly authenticated or without logging in, what's going to happen is that the application is going to redirect you back to the login page, right? So it will basically tell you that, yeah, you can access that, but first you need to log in into your account so that we can verify that you are a legitimate or an authenticated user, and then we'll show you that particular page, right? So this is generally what happens. Now, the thing is that sometimes, and to be honest, in many times, considering the vulnerable web application, what happens is that when you're trying to access the endpoint, which is supposed to be accessible only once you are authenticated, in the response, you'll get the response code, which is 302 found, right? And then there will be a location header that is going to redirect you to a desired page, for example, to the login page or something like that. But there is a possibility that even in all that, the response body is still containing the page that is used for checkout. I know it sounds a little confusing, but in simple terms, what I can say is that, even if you're trying to access the page without authentication, the backend might serve you the web page, but because of the response code, you are getting redirected back to the admin page, right? So if we are somehow able to see the page, like see the request and response properly, we will be able to determine whether this particular case is happening or not. And if in your case, if this thing is happening, it can lead to something really, really cool, right? And I'll show you just right after that, right after this particular explanation, that how we can look for this particular vulnerability. But this is what exactly is happening. So even if you're not authenticated, the server is still serving you the web page of the endpoint that should be only accessible only you are authenticated, right? But because of the response code, which is over here 302 found or temporary redirect or something like that, you are getting, or your browser is telling you to redirect back to the admin or back to the login page, right? So this is what exactly is happening. Now, I hope you all have understood this, and if you have any doubts, I'm sure that once you'll see the practical demonstration, you will be able to understand that, okay, what exactly I'm telling. So yeah, let's go to the practical part and let's try to understand this with a live example. So as you can see, we are over here at this particular application, and obviously I have developed this particular application based on real world scenarios, and whatever you're going to see right over here is the exact method that I have used to find this interesting misconfiguration on many live targets, and trust me, it is awesome. Okay, so let us quickly go ahead and try to log in into this application using the credential that we are provided, admin@bpractical.tech. Okay, so let me show you its normal behavior. So we'll try to log in and we'll try to provide the password, which is this. Let me just paste it right over here. Let me just see my burp suite configuration, and let's click on login while making sure that intercept is turned on, and let's see how this application is behaving. Let me just go to login. Let's try to intercept the response here, and you can see we are redirected to 302 and we are redirected to dashboard, right? We also have some HTML code here which is saying that redirecting to dashboard. Now interestingly, if you take a closer look, in all the modern browser, if the response code is 302 found, you will not see the HTML code rendering over here. So if I forward this request, the application, the browser is directly going to redirect us to dashboard without showing us any HTML content, right? And you see we are redirected to dashboard, and just turn off the intercept. And over here we have some dummy data. So you can see it says it's a confidential client data, and these are the client name. Like we have over here the API token, which seems to be something really sensitive, and we have the email address, and we have the client name, which is something that we can say that these are some sensitive data, and any outsider should not be having any type of authority over this data, right? Let me just quickly go back and log out. Now we are back to the login page, and if I try to access the dashboard page again, you'll see something interesting happens, right? So let me just go to dashboard, and let's see what happens. You see, the moment I try to go to dashboard, we are redirected back to login, right? And this is what happens in most of the cases when you're trying to access an endpoint which requires authentication. This is what you're going to expect, that is going to throw you back to the login panel. So unless you are logged in, it's not going to show you the actual sensitive page, right? Seems pretty secure, right? But let's try to understand what's going to happen if you try to analyze the request as well as the response. So I'm going to turn on the intercept right now again, and over here I'm going to change this to, let's say, dashboard. Dashboard again, let's capture the request. So this is where we have the request over here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to intercept the response, and you'll see something really interesting. Okay, let's forward this, and you can see again the application has identified that we are not we're not authenticated, and it's redirected me back to the main page, right? But if you take a closer look, you can see that the backend is still serving us the HTML data, right? You can see we are getting the client dashboard and all those things. But the thing is that if the status code is 302 found, the browser is not going to show you this data, and it's going to redirect you to whatever location header is given to, right? Like if I forward this now again, you see we are again gotten back to the login panel, right? So what we can simply do here is we can simply try to access the page again, and this time we'll just modify the response code. Let me just go to dashboard again. Let me just intercept the response, forward the request, and I can simply just remove this 302 found to 200 OK. This is actually it. This is all you need to do in order to find this particular kind of misconfiguration. And simply by just forwarding the request, you see we are able to access the internal client dashboard even though we are not authenticated or we don't have any authorization to see this particular data, right? You see how simple it is, but yet despite being simple, this can be of a huge impact to the business, right? Like trust me, I have found this misconfiguration so many times in doing pen testing that, to be honest, I have lost count of it. And this is really interesting. In many of the application, this same method allowed me not only to access the data, but also edit or modify the data as well. Now, isn't that scary, right? So this is exactly how you can find this kind of misconfiguration. And now, if you are thinking that why this kind of misconfiguration is happening in web application, so let me just dive you into the source code so that you'll be able to understand that what is the root cause of this issue and how we can prevent this. So let's quickly go into the source code. So as you can see right now, I am at my web server, and let me just show you the exact code, okay? And I hope you all will understand this. So it's actually quite simple. So what exactly this particular code is doing, that we have a default user. As you can see, we have the default credential, and by default this is authenticated value has been set to false. In real world application, you will have something known as sessions, but here just to simulate this session thing, I have created this particular variable which is set to false. Right now, what exactly is happening is that once the credential is verified, the is authenticated variable is going to be set to true. Okay, and now when you'll try to access the dashboard, it is going to check that whether you are authenticated or not in this code. Okay, if you are authenticated, then it's going to just render the dashboard. If you're not authenticated, it's going to return 302 and it's going to set the location to this particular value, which we have seen through burp suite. Right now, the actual issue is that if you are a little bit into programming and stuffs, you'll understand that this line of code is having the main issue. So let's try to understand this in very simple terms. So this line simply means that if the user is not authenticated, we'll set the status code to 302 and we'll redirect it to the location, which is this one. Okay, and if this is like, if the is authenticated value is set to true, then this part is going to be skipped and is going to just render the dashboard. Okay, the main thing is that despite being authenticated or unauthenticated, right, the server is still going to send the dashboard, because if you have a little bit knowledge of programming language, you know that in a function, the function will terminate when we have the return keyword, right? The function will like close itself when it has returned something. In this example, you can see the return function is outside of this particular condition. Right, so what exactly is happening is that even if you're authenticated or even if you're not authenticated, this code is still going to execute. Right, and this is the main reason this thing is happening. So to actually fix this, it is very simple. We can simply just edit this data here and we can just do something like this. Let me just show it to you guys. So we can simply add a return right over here. Like we can add something like return, and then we can add like respond dot let's say send. Okay, and we can send something like unauthenticated like this, and this is pretty much it. This is how you are going to fix this particular issue. Let me just save it right now. Let me go back to this web application and let's see how it's going to behave right now. So again, you'll see we are at this particular application. Let me just go back to the page, right? And right now, if you try to access the dashboard page again, you'll see something interesting happens. Okay, so let me just go to dashboard, hit enter, and let's intercept the response. And now you'll see what happens is that instead of the actual code, we are getting unauthenticated, which is exactly what we were expecting, right? And now the application will never send you the web page, even if you're trying to intercept the response. Right now we can only access or get the dashboard if we have used the proper credential. Like let me just give it to you guys, the valid credential, and let's click on login, and you can see this is the only way right now through which we can see this sensitive data. So you see how easy it was to fix this particular issue. But despite all of this, I have seen many applications vulnerable to this simple misconfiguration. I hope you all have understood this misconfiguration and how we can find it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have any doubts or any issues, feel free to let me know your doubts or issues in the comment section. Also, do join our Telegram channel if you want to stay updated with the latest trends and technologies going under cybersecurity, ethical hacking, and bug bounty hunting. And now, with that being said, keep learning, keep hacking, and thank you so much for watching this video.